Hi, Misha Gill, Speedwell Law. In this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of cremation versus burial. So let's just take those in order. The first one I'm going to talk about is cremation. Okay, and the thing you need to know about cremation is that it makes your agent's jobs a lot simpler. I don't know if you know this, but you can actually put someone in the mail if they've been cremated. Can't do that with a body. So cremation really simplifies the logistics of transporting a body or the cremated remains of your loved one, particularly if you're going to be going across state lines. Now, I have had to transport a body across state lines, so what happened was I had a guardianship client who passed away. The gentleman was not particularly affluent, and so there were limited funds available for the burial and the cremation and all that stuff. And so he was from South Carolina, and so I transported his body from here in Virginia down to South Carolina, and that cost a significant chunk of change. Just getting him a plane ticket cost $1,200, and so then all the other burial expenses are on top of that. Plus, it's just a massively challenging scenario getting the body from the funeral home to the airport, and then at the other end of the travel destination as well, from the airport to another funeral home or straight to the cemetery. And so just keep in mind that if you are going to be cremated, it's much simpler for your family to transport you to wherever your final destination is going to be. Cremation, another advantage, another pro of cremation is that it's much cheaper. The burial urn for a cremated body is going to cost, in the realm of $600 to $1,000. That contrasts with burial, where the casket is going to cost anywhere from $1,500 to, say, $5,000, $6,000. There's no real ceiling on how much a casket can cost. There's another pop cultural reference. In Ozarks, the lady who died wanted a $25,000 casket. There's no real ceiling. You can make it as expensive as you want it to be, but in general, the burial is going to cost a lot more if you're going to be buried versus cremated. So your cremated remains, the spot at the cemetery is also going to be a lot cheaper. If you're going to, because it takes less room, you're taking up less room. So you can be put in a columbarium, which is a wall of cremated remains, or they have crematory gardens where you are interred in the ground, and that's going to be a lot cheaper than a burial plot, because there's the opening and closing costs, there's the casket, and the ceremony, etc. A burial costs in the realm of $5,000 to $7,000. Cremation can be a lot cheaper than that. You can cremate a body from under $2,000, certainly, probably even cheaper, depending on how you manage things and what you negotiate and where you live. And so then that takes me to other options for cremation. Cremation gives you that option to be scattered on your favorite golf course, or in the ocean, or in a river, or on a burial, anywhere, on a farm, anything you can imagine, you can be scattered there. There are laws against being buried on public land and in the open. Obviously, you can't be not buried. There are laws against that in Virginia. But I had to tell that to a client because I had a client request a Tibetan sky burial. And a Tibetan sky burial is when they leave your body out on the side of the mountain and the vultures come and eat it. And so that's not legal in Virginia, so can't do that. But cremation, you can be scattered wherever you want. Couple considerations for scattering. Number one, most important, if you're going to ask to be scattered at sea, if you're carrying out someone's wishes with that and you're going to do it on a cruise ship, make sure you tell the cruise ship ahead of time. They do not like surprise scatterings off the side of the deck, because it tends to blow back or blow onto unexpected places. I mean, if you tell them ahead of time, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you a designated place to scatter you off the stern of the ship. It'll be a lot cleaner. They'll even provide a chaplain sometimes. It's gonna be a lot better. And you're not gonna be all furtively secretive about carrying on your burial urn and all that stuff. It's much more dignified to tell them ahead of time, get scattered at sea off the stern of a cruise ship. So then another thing to keep in mind if you're gonna be scattering your ashes, sometimes people want to be scattered in a bunch of different places, like, a little bit at the family farm in Maine, a little bit in Florida, a little bit in Colorado. That's going to be really time consuming and expensive for your agents. And you're not around to enforce your wishes, so your agents might ignore your wishes. And that would be awful, right? I mean, if your agents just ignored your wishes, you don't want to set up that possibility. So, keep in mind that, okay, yeah, you can do it, but, make it reasonable. Scattering your ashes, at sea or, on the farm, any of that kind of thing is pretty straightforward, but multiple places starts to get logistically challenging. All right, so that's cremation. I'm going to talk a little bit about burial. Typically, we see people specifically requesting burial when they have religious reasons to do so. Or maybe they had an experience where they really wanted to say goodbye to their loved one who passed away unexpectedly, and so there was an open casket funeral. Those are reasons to be buried versus cremated. Just keep in mind that if you're going to be buried, and especially for the open casket, you're going to have to be embalmed. Now, embalming is when they inject your bodies full of chemicals, and that's kind of undignified to have that happen to your corpse. So just make sure you know what you're getting into. If that doesn't bother you, you're gone, then it doesn't bother you, that's fine. But for burial, another couple of considerations to keep in mind. Obviously the cost, but also the availability of space at the cemetery where you want to be buried. So if you have a family burial plot somewhere, you're going to want to ensure that if you're asking to be buried there, that there's room there for you to be buried. If there's no room there for you, then your wishes are going to be defeated and you won't have had a say in where you were buried at all. And that would be bad. So you can make pre-need burial contracts with cemeteries where you pay them up front and lock in your plot of land ahead of time. And so that's a good idea. Now, one of the trends in burials is to request a burial pod. And I've actually done this in my wishes, in my burial power of attorney. I've specifically requested to be turned into a tree on the side of a trout stream, because fishing is the lens through which I view the world. And I want to be on a trout stream. That's just what I want. But I'm probably going to be changing my wishes because it's really hard to bury someone on the side of a trout stream because you can't be buried on public land. Again, that's illegal. You can't bury a body out in the woods. So I'm going to be changing my wishes so that I'm cremated and then turned into a tree. You can scatter ashes in the soil and then plant a tree on top of it. That's no problem. Now, I don't know how feasible it is. There aren't many laws available for this kind of thing. There's a new law in Oregon that allows you to be turned into a burial pod, into a tree. There are new methods across the world where you can be turned into soil by mushrooms. That's all stuff that's kind of on the cutting edge of burial wishes. And so that's something to monitor going forward. If you want to return to nature, if you want your energy to return to nature, then those are some of the options that you have. But there aren't that many options in America, in Virginia right now. So that's the pros and cons of cremation and burial. Thank you for watching.